There's a common misconception that the Catholic Church oppresses women. I'm almost willing to bet money that you've heard this expression used. And I'm here today to debunk that myth. The Church has celebrated and honored women for centuries. The Church has elevated the voices of women. And the best part is, the Church is not interested in just one type of voice or one type of woman. But the Church acknowledges that every woman, by her baptism, is called to holiness and to use her unique voice and gifts to proclaim the gospel. The Church is not afraid of strong women. The Church has been shaped and purified by women over centuries. I think of women like St. Catherine of Siena or St. Teresa of Avila. Strong women who have helped our church become the church it is today as Christ's living members. St. Edith Stein, one of my favorite saints we'll learn about in just a few minutes, said this beautiful quote about the necessity of women in our church today. Catholic women have a strong support in the church. It needs their strength. The church needs us. That means the Lord needs us. Not that he could not manage without us, but he has granted us grace, forming us as members of his mystical body, employing us as his living members. Blessed Virgin Mary is the strongest woman we could think of, the woman that the church has elevated to its highest honor as the Mother of God. And we see in Mary womanhood celebrated, revered, honored. As women, we are called to be an image of the Blessed Virgin Mary. But this is in no way oppressive or limiting of our freedom of expression. All we have to do is look to the communion of saints to see how women have used that call to be an image of Mary, but in their own unique way. We look at the diversity of the communion of saints, and there's no cookie cutter type of woman that shows us that this is what it means to be holy. There are so many different paths to holiness that the church acknowledges and celebrates for women. The church doesn't say you have to become a nun or you have to become a religious sister in order to be holy or worthy of honor. Yes, we look at our communion of saints and we have beautiful religious sisters, beautiful nuns, but we also have soldiers, missionaries, doctors, educators, mothers, wives, musicians, so many different women of different ages, different cultural backgrounds, socioeconomic statuses, occupations. And so I just want to highlight that as women, we are called to use the gifts that God has given us to glorify him and to bring about the salvation of souls and building his kingdom. And the women I'm going to talk about today did just that. And they show us that there are so many different paths to holiness, which is what ultimately the church honors. The church honors and celebrates holiness. So the first two women I'm going to talk about are St. Gianna Molla and St. Zélie Martin, two amazing women who were both wives and working mothers. St. Zélie owned her own lace making business. She was an entrepreneur. And St. Gianna Molla owned her own clinic. She was a pediatrician. Both women knew the joys and the struggles of balancing a family, a husband, and their occupation. While in history, many people have said, women, you can't do it. You can't work. You can't be a mom. You can't achieve your dreams. You have to pick one. The church hasn't said that. The church acknowledges that women have the freedom to pursue the gifts and the mission that God has placed for that woman. So the church has celebrated mothers and wives for centuries and said, whether you're working in public life or you're working in your home, you are worthy of holiness. Both are paths to holiness as long as you put Jesus Christ as your foundation and you pursue him in virtue, in the sacraments, and in your everyday life. Another saint who lived out holiness in her unique way, in her own unique context, was Venerable Satoko Kitahara. Venerable Satoko Kitahara was a special woman who was born into an aristocratic Shinto family in Japan. She lived during World War II, and she grappled with many of the questions brought up by suffering at this time, including what is the meaning of life? What is my purpose? What is the purpose of suffering? And Venerable Satoko Kitahara had a conversion at the age of 20. And on her baptism day, a religious sister said, "You have such a beautiful smile. Will you promise to use your smile for Jesus Christ?" And that's what Satoko did. She did that using her smile in all that she did on behalf of Jesus Christ. Satoko ended up working in a very impoverished area in a neighborhood called Antstown, where she lived among the poor and she served them, helping children with their education, helping build the village become better. And she used her unique, beautiful, God-given voice to proclaim the gospel message in her 20s. And many people converted because of Satoko. And she did all this with joy and a smile. Satoko shows us that a life in Christ is not oppressive and it's not miserable. A life in Christ is joyful and one of true freedom. Another woman who used her voice to empower others is one of my favorites, as I said earlier, St. Edith Stein. Edith, like Satoko, was a convert. Edith was a philosopher and a lecturer when there were times, or this was during the time that women didn't have as many opportunities to be in those positions of authority and power. So, not Satoko, Edith. Edith, she was a prolific writer, and she has a collection of writings called Essays on Women. Highly recommend reading it. It changed my life. And Edith used her voice and the gifts that God gave her to communicate beauty and truth about womanhood and the vocation of woman and what is authentic femininity. And as women, what is our role in the church? Edith Stein was a brave woman. She was an authentic woman who lived her calling and later became a nun, a cloistered nun. And unfortunately, St. Edith Stein, due to her Jewish origin, lost her life at Auschwitz with her sister Rosa. But she did all things with the beauty and courage that all Catholic women are called to use our unique voices. The last female saint I want to talk about is Blessed Maria Felicia Guigiera Echeverria. Blessed Maria Felicia was born in Paraguay, and in her young age, she was trying to discern her vocation. Is God calling her to be a religious or to marriage? And she ended up meeting a beautiful, handsome, kind young man named Angel. And she soon found herself falling for Angel. And they had a very special relationship in which even he asked her on a date to the movies, and she said, "Let's go visit the sick in the hospital instead," and they donated blood. Talk about dating goals. But Blessed Maria Felicia shows us the power and the gifts that women have in accompaniment and in the support of our brothers in Christ. So this young man, Angel, ended up telling Maria Felicia, "I think God is calling me to be a priest." And instead of becoming bitter and resentful, Blessed Maria Felicia said, "I am here to support you, and I will accompany you in your discernment." And that's what she did in helping him achieve his goal. She shows us the gift of friendship and that women are called to support our brothers in Christ and to nurture, like the Blessed Virgin Mary did, souls and people entrusted to our care so that they grow into the people that God created them to be. And she did that as a young woman. She later became a religious sister herself and later died of hepatitis. In these women, we see diverse paths of holiness. And I could have gone on and said so many more stories of different lives of saints. The church celebrates these diverse paths and these beautiful, courageous women because ultimately all of these paths lead to Jesus Christ himself. And that is the path that we are called to take. Christ is calling you too, sister, back to himself, all the way to heaven, to be a great saint. He isn't calling you to be Mother Teresa or Venerable Satoko Kitahara. He's calling you to be you, to use the unique gifts that he's given you, your voice, which is worthy of being heard, to build his kingdom here on earth, to glorify him through your life. Whether you're 27 or 47, single, married, religious, confused on what your next steps are, God is calling you right now to be an instrument of his love and his mercy. Become the woman that God has created you to be. Be courageous, be fearless. Look to the Blessed Virgin Mary as your model and guide, and allow yourself to radiate the love and the joy of Jesus Christ. Because a life in Christ is not oppressive and it's not miserable. It is one of abundance. A life of Christ is one of joy, and a life in Christ is one of true freedom. God has blessed you with gifts, talents, strengths, and people in your life worthy of love and care. And it's up to you, sister. Will you live up to your mission? May God bless you.